Jake Martinez stared out the window of the starship and felt his stomach twist into knots. The alien planet below looked like a giant crystal ball floating in space. Purple and gold lights danced across its surface like lightning trapped in glass. This was Kristhara, home to the Valari Empire. "First time seeing an alien world?" asked Captain Lisa Brooks as she walked up beside him. Jake nodded. "I still can't believe I'm here. 3 weeks ago I was fixing broken machines on Earth. Now I'm supposed to help make peace with aliens." Lisa smiled. "Ambassador Clark picked you for a reason. Sometimes fresh eyes see things that diplomats miss." The ship's speakers crackled to life. "All diplomatic team members report to briefing room 3. We arrive in 2 hours." Jake's hands were sweaty as he walked through the metal corridors. The ship felt huge, but he knew it was tiny compared to the Valari vessels they had seen on their way here. Those ships looked like flying palaces made of crystal and gold. In the briefing room, Ambassador Kevin Clark stood in front of a large screen showing pictures of the aliens they would meet. The Valari looked almost human, but their skin was made of something that looked like living crystal. It changed colors based on how they felt. "Remember," Clark said in his serious voice, "these beings judge everything by how complex and expensive it looks. Their entire society is built around showing off wealth and advanced technology. The fancier something is, the more they respect it." Jake looked at the gifts they had brought. There were machines that could think faster than any computer on Earth. There were chunks of rare metals that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. There were art pieces created by the greatest human artists. "The most important person we'll meet is Princess Zara Lynn," Clark continued. "She's the Emperor's daughter and the one who will decide if we get the trade routes we need. Make no mistake, humanity's future in space depends on this meeting going well." A picture appeared on the screen showing a tall alien woman. Her crystal skin shifted between deep purple and bright gold. Even in the picture, she looked proud and cold. "What happens if she doesn't like us?" asked Dr. Amy Johnson, the team's scientist. Clark's face grew dark. "Then we go home empty-handed, and humanity stays trapped in our small corner of the galaxy, while other species claim all the good planets and trade routes." Jake felt the weight of responsibility crush down on him. He was just a guy who fixed things. What was he doing here? 2 hours later, their ship landed on a platform that seemed to be made of pure light. Jake had to squint as they walked down the ramp. Everything around them sparkled and gleamed. The buildings looked like they were grown rather than built, with twisted spires that reached toward the purple sky. Waiting for them was a group of Valari in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. Their crystal skin flashed in patterns that the ship's computer translated into words. "Welcome, humans of Earth," said the lead alien. "I am Commander Aryavel. Princess Zara Lynn waits for you in the palace." The palace was beyond anything Jake had ever imagined. The walls were transparent but somehow still solid. Lights flowed through them like water. The floor felt soft under his feet, even though it looked like diamond. Everything was designed to show how advanced and wealthy the Valari were. Princess Zara Lynn sat on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. She was beautiful in an alien way, but her eyes were cold as ice. When she looked at the human delegation, her skin flashed with colors that the translator said meant boredom and mild disgust. "So," she said. Her voice like music played on crystal bells. "The primitive humans have come to beg for passage through our space." Ambassador Clark stepped forward and bowed. "Your Highness, we come seeking friendship and trade that will benefit both our peoples." The princess made a sound that might have been laughter. "Friendship? What could a species that still uses crude metal ships possibly offer the Valari Empire?" Clark gestured to the gifts they had brought. Robot servants carried forward the advanced computers, the rare metals, and the art pieces. Each item was worth more money than Jake would see in 10 lifetimes. Princess Zara Lynn examined each gift with the look of someone forced to smell garbage. Her skin flashed annoyed orange patterns. "Interesting toys," she said finally. "But we have computers that think 1,000,000 times faster than these. We have metals rarer than anything in your solar system. And as for art," she waved a hand dismissively, "your crude paintings and sculptures show a complete lack of understanding of true beauty." Jake watched Ambassador Clark's face go pale. This was not going well. "Perhaps," the princess continued, "you should return to your little planet and spend a few more centuries developing actual civilization before attempting to deal with your betters." The words hit Jake like a punch to the stomach. All around them, Valari nobles made sounds that the translator turned into cruel laughter. Their skin patterns flashed with colors that meant amusement at inferior beings. Jake had worked his whole life building things with his hands. He had never thought of himself as primitive. But standing in this crystal palace, surrounded by technology beyond his understanding, he felt very small and very human. Ambassador Clark tried to speak again, but Princess Zaralyn held up one crystal hand. "This audience is over. Commander Ariavel will escort you back to your ship. Perhaps in a few hundred years your species will be ready for real diplomacy." As they were led away, Jake caught one more glimpse of the princess. She sat on her crystal throne looking bored and untouchable, surrounded by wealth and technology that made human achievements look like children's toys. But something in her eyes made Jake pause. Behind all that pride and coldness, he thought he saw something else. Something that looked almost like sadness. Jake sat in the ship's workshop with his head in his hands. The meeting with Princess Zaralyn had been a disaster. Ambassador Clark was in his room making angry phone calls to Earth. Captain Brooks was trying to figure out what to do next, and Jake felt like it was somehow his fault. "Stop beating yourself up," said Dr. Amy Johnson as she entered the workshop. "There was nothing any of us could have done differently." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I keep thinking there has to be something we're missing. Some way to reach them." Amy sat down on a toolbox. "Did you see how they looked at our gifts? Like we had offered them rocks and sticks." Jake nodded. He had been thinking about that look in the princess's eyes. Not just boredom or disgust, something else. Something that reminded him of his sister when she was going through her divorce. Surrounded by expensive things, but somehow empty inside. To take his mind off the failed mission, Jake started working on a small wooden music box that sat on his workbench. It had belonged to his grandmother and played Danny Boy when you wound it up. The mechanism had been broken for months, but Jake found comfort in trying to fix it. The music box was simple, just wood and metal and tiny gears, nothing fancy or high-tech. His grandmother had bought it at a yard sale for $5 when Jake was little. But when she died last year, it was the one thing he had asked for from her belongings. As Jake worked, his hands moved without thinking. He replaced a broken spring, cleaned the gears, and adjusted the tiny pins that plucked the metal strips to make the melody. It was peaceful work, the kind of thing that made him remember why he loved building and fixing things. Finally, the music box was ready. Jake wound the key and listened as the sweet, simple melody filled the workshop. For a moment, he forgot about alien princesses and failed diplomacy. He was just a man listening to a song his grandmother used to hum while she cooked dinner. "Attention, all crew," came Captain Brooks's voice over the speakers. "The Valari have agreed to one more meeting. Diplomatic team to the shuttle bay in 30 minutes. Jake's stomach dropped. Another chance to fail. Another chance to watch Princess Zaralyn dismiss humanity as primitive and worthless. The shuttle ride back to the Crystal Palace felt like riding to his own execution. Ambassador Clark sat quietly going over his notes. Dr. Johnson stared out the window at the alien city below. Nobody wanted to talk about what might happen if this meeting went as badly as the first one. The palace looked even more impressive the second time. Jake noticed details he had missed before. The way light seemed to flow through the walls like liquid, the floating platforms that carried Valari nobles from level to level. The gardens where crystal trees grew in perfect geometric patterns. Princess Zaralyn was waiting in a smaller room this time. Her crystal skin was a calm blue color that the translator said meant mild interest. Better than the angry orange from before, Jake thought. "I have decided to give your species one final chance," she said. "Present your best argument for why the Valari Empire should waste time dealing with primitives." Ambassador Clark stepped forward and began to speak about trade benefits and strategic alliances. His words were smooth and professional, but Jake could see the princess's skin starting to shift toward bored orange again. That's when Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. He stepped forward, pulling the small music box from his pocket. "Your Highness," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "I know this isn't a proper diplomatic gift. It's just something that belonged to my grandmother. But where I come from, we believe that music is one way people share feelings with each other." Princess Zaralyn's skin flashed angry red. "Are you insulting me with this crude trinket?" "No, Your Highness," Jake said quickly. "I just thought maybe you'd like to hear how it sounds. It's nothing special, just a simple song." Before anyone could stop him, Jake wound the key and set the music box on a nearby table. The gentle melody of Danny Boy began to play, filling the crystal room with its sweet, simple sound. What happened next shocked everyone in the room. Princess Zara Lynn's crystal skin began to change in ways that made her guards step forward in alarm. Instead of the usual blues, purples, and golds, her skin started showing colors that Jake had never seen before. Soft greens that seemed to pulse with the music. Warm yellows that flowed across her face like sunlight. Pink shades that appeared and disappeared in rhythm with the melody. Commander Ariavel started speaking rapidly in the Valari language, her own skin flashing urgent warning patterns. Other guards moved closer to the princess as if she might be in danger, but Princess Zara Lynn held up a hand to stop them. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like wonder. She stared at the music box as if it were the most amazing thing she had ever seen. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice filled with an emotion that the translator couldn't identify. "What is happening to me?" The music box finished its song and wound down to silence. For a long moment nobody moved. The princess's skin was still showing those strange, beautiful colors that seemed to dance across her crystal surface. I don't understand," she said, looking at Jake with new eyes. "That simple device, it made me feel something I have never felt before. Something I didn't know was possible." Jake looked around the room at the shocked faces of both humans and aliens. He had no idea what he had just done, but he could tell it was important. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "what did you feel?" Princess Zara Lynn touched her chest where a human heart would be. Her skin continued to show those warm, flowing colors. "I felt happy," she said as if the word was foreign to her, but not the satisfaction of acquiring wealth or the pride of showing superior technology. Something else. Something simple and pure and... She paused, searching for words. "Peaceful." Commander Ariavel stepped forward, her expression worried. "Princess, perhaps we should call the healers. This behavior is not normal for our kind." "No," Princess Zara Lynn said firmly. "I want to understand this. Human Jake Martinez, will you play that device again?" Jake wound the music box once more, and again the room filled with the simple melody of Danny Boy. Again the princess's skin showed those beautiful, impossible colors. And again, her expression filled with something that looked like joy mixed with sadness, mixed with a longing for something she had never known she was missing. When the song ended, she looked at Jake with eyes that seemed to see him as a person for the first time. "Tell me about this music," she said. "Tell me about your grandmother. Tell me why this simple thing has power that all our advanced technology cannot match." Jake found himself sitting across from Princess Zara Lynn in her private chambers. The room was smaller than the throne room, but still filled with crystal furniture and floating lights. The princess had dismissed all her guards except Commander Ariavel, who stood near the door looking very worried. "Tell me about your grandmother," the princess said. Her skin was still showing those strange, warm colors that had appeared when she heard the music box. Jake felt nervous talking to alien royalty, but something in her voice made him relax. She sounded genuinely curious, not cold and superior like before. "Her name was Maria," Jake began. "She wasn't rich or important. She worked in a factory making car parts, but she was the kindest person I ever knew. When I was little and my parents were fighting, I would go to her house. She would make me soup and play that music box while I fell asleep on her couch." The princess listened carefully, her crystal skin continuing to show colors that seemed to match Jake's emotions as he spoke. "The music box was old even when she had it," Jake continued. "Nothing special about it. Just wood and metal, but every time she played it, the house felt peaceful. Safe, like nothing bad could happen while that song was playing." "Safe." The princess repeated the word like she was tasting something new. "That is what I felt. Safe and, what is the word? Content?" "Yeah," Jake smiled. "Content. Like everything was okay just the way it was." Commander Ariavel stepped forward, her skin flashing concerned patterns. "Princess, with respect, perhaps we should summon the royal physicians. These emotional responses are not normal for our species." Princess Zara Lynn looked at her guard with eyes that seemed older and sadder than before. "Ariavel, what if they are supposed to be normal? What if we lost something important a long time ago?" "I don't understand, Your Highness." The princess stood and walked to a window that looked out over the crystal city. "I have lived for 25 of your years, Ariavel. I have everything anyone could want. Wealth beyond counting. Technology that can reshape matter itself. Art that took centuries to create. But until today I have never felt what this human calls contentment. Jake watched as her skin shifted to deeper, more thoughtful colors. Our ancestors were not always like us, she continued. I have read the old histories. Before we became the Valari Empire, before we mastered crystal technology and conquered the stars, we were different. The ancient texts mention emotions and experiences that we no longer understand. Commander Ariavel's skin showed confusion patterns. But Princess, our evolution beyond such primitive feelings is what made us great. Our logic and focus on advancement brought us to rule over dozens of worlds. Did it? The princess asked. Or did we trade something valuable for power and wealth? She turned back to Jake. Play the music again. I want to try something. Jake wound the music box and set it on a crystal table. As the melody began, the princess closed her eyes and let the strange colors wash over her skin. But this time, something else happened. Slowly, other Valari in the palace began to appear at the windows and doorways. They were drawn by the sound of the simple melody in a way that their own complex music had never attracted them. Guards, servants, nobles, all stopped what they were doing to listen. And as they listened, Jake saw something amazing. One by one, their crystal skin began to show the same warm, unusual colors that the princess displayed. Soft greens and golden yellows and gentle pinks that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the music. By the crystal throne, whispered one of the guards. What is happening to us? When the music stopped, a crowd of Valari had gathered outside the princess's chambers. They all looked confused and amazed, their skin showing colors that none of them had ever seen before. Princess Zaralyn opened her eyes and saw the crowd. Her expression grew thoughtful and sad. Commander Ariavel, she said quietly, send a message to the royal archives. I want to see the oldest records we have. From before the great advancement. From when our people were still emotional. Princess, those records are considered primitive texts, barely worth preserving. Send the message, the princess said firmly. Jake watched this exchange with growing understanding. Your Highness, can I ask you something? When was the last time you felt truly happy? Not satisfied with an achievement or proud of something you owned. Just happy for no reason. The princess was quiet for a long moment. I don't think I ever have, she said finally. Even as a child, I was taught that emotions were weaknesses. That true advancement meant controlling all feelings and focusing only on logic and progress. But you felt something when you heard the music. Jake said, yes, and it was... She searched for words. It was wonderful and terrible at the same time. Wonderful because it felt so right, like finding something I had lost and forgotten I was missing. Terrible because it made me realize how empty my life has been. Commander Ariavel brought a crystal tablet displaying ancient Valari texts. As the princess read, her skin showed deeper and deeper blues, colors that the translator said meant profound sadness and regret. These records speak of emotions I do not understand, she said. Joy, wonder, love, playfulness. Our ancestors wrote about finding beauty in simple things, about feeling connected to each other and to the world around them, about experiences that brought meaning beyond wealth or power. She looked up at Jake with eyes that now seemed to see him as an equal rather than a primitive. Your people still have these feelings, don't they? That's why a simple music box can mean more to you than all our advanced technology. Jake nodded. We're not perfect. We fight and hurt each other sometimes. But yeah, we still know how to be happy about small things. A sunset, a good meal, a song that reminds us of someone we love. The princess stood and walked over to the gathered Valari outside her chambers. What did you feel when you heard the humans' music? She asked them. Peace, said one guard. Like floating in warm water, said a servant. Like being a child again, though I cannot remember what that was like, said an elderly noble. Princess Zaralyn turned back to Jake. We need to understand this. If your people have preserved something that we lost, perhaps we can learn to find it again, but it must be done carefully. Our entire civilization is built on the belief that emotions are primitive weaknesses. Jake thought about his grandmother and the simple wisdom she had shared with him. Your Highness, maybe being advanced doesn't mean giving up the things that make life worth living. Maybe it means finding a way to have both. The princess's skin showed colors that Jake was starting to recognize as hope. Yes, she said. Perhaps true advancement means growing in wisdom, not just in power. Perhaps we need to learn from humans as much as you need to learn from us. She looked out at her crystal city with new eyes. seeing it not just as a display of wealth and technology, but as a place where millions of beings lived without ever experiencing the simple joy that a wooden music box could bring. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "This changes everything." Over the next few days, Princess Zara Lynn secretly requested more meetings with Jake. She wanted to learn about human emotions and the simple things that brought people joy. Jake felt strange being a teacher to alien royalty, but the princess listened to everything he said with the attention of someone discovering a new world. "Bring me more of your simple objects," she asked during their third meeting. "I want to understand how basic things can create such powerful feelings." Jake had been thinking about this. He went back to his quarters and gathered some items he had brought from Earth. Nothing valuable or high-tech. Just personal things that meant something to him. He returned to the princess's chambers carrying a small bag. From it, he pulled out a child's kaleidoscope, a cardboard tube with colored glass pieces inside. When you looked through it and turned it, the pieces created changing patterns. "This is a kaleidoscope," Jake explained. "Children on Earth play with them. You look through this end and turn it slowly." Princess Zara Lynn took the simple device with curiosity. As she peered through the eyepiece and began to turn it, her crystal skin immediately started showing new colors. Bright dancing patterns that seemed to mirror the colored shapes she was seeing inside the kaleidoscope. "Incredible," she breathed. "The patterns are so random yet beautiful. Our artists spend years creating perfect geometric designs, but these accidental combinations are somehow more pleasing to look at." Jake watched her skin continue to shift and dance with colors. "It's because there's no pressure to be perfect. You just let your mind relax and enjoy the pretty shapes." Next, Jake showed her a wooden whistle he had carved himself. It was rough and simple, nothing like the perfect crystal instruments the Valari used. When he played a few notes, the princess's skin showed surprised delight. "The sound is so pure," she said. "Our music is technically perfect, but this has something else. Something that touches me here." She placed a hand over her heart. "It's called emotion," Jake said gently. "The whistle isn't perfect, but it was made by hand with care. You can hear the person who made it in the sound." Princess Zara Lynn tried playing the whistle herself. The notes came out rough and uneven, but as she played, her skin glowed with warm, happy colors. For the first time since Jake had met her, she looked like someone enjoying herself instead of displaying her superiority. "This is remarkable," she said. "I feel no need to prove anything or impress anyone. I'm simply playing," Jake smiled. "That's the idea. Sometimes the best things in life don't have a purpose except to make you happy." Word of these secret meetings began to spread through the palace. Some Valari were curious about what the princess was learning from the humans. Others were worried that she was being corrupted by primitive influences. Commander Ariavel came to Jake privately one day, her skin showing concerned patterns. "Human Jake, I must speak with you about the princess. Her behavior has changed dramatically since you gave her that music device. Some members of the Royal Council are beginning to worry." "What kind of changes?" Jake asked. "Yesterday, she spent an hour watching clouds through her window instead of attending to important state business. This morning, she asked her servants about their families and seemed genuinely interested in their answers. These behaviors are not considered appropriate for Valari royalty." Jake felt a chill of worry. "Is she in trouble?" "Not yet. But there are those who believe human influence is weakening her mind. They see emotions as a form of mental illness that could spread if not controlled." That afternoon, Jake's fears were confirmed. Princess Zara Lynn arrived at their usual meeting place with several royal advisors in tow. Their crystal skin showed the cold blues and purples that meant disapproval and authority. "Princess Zara Lynn," said the lead advisor, "the Royal Council has become concerned about these unusual meetings. We believe it would be best if formal diplomatic relations were resumed and these informal exchanges were ended." The princess's skin flashed angry red. "Are you telling me I cannot choose who I speak with?" "We are suggesting that exposure to primitive emotional responses may be clouding your judgment, Your Highness. The Valari Empire's strength comes from our logical advanced thinking. These human influences threaten to make you weak." Jake watched the princess struggle with conflicting feelings. Her skin showed rapid color changes: anger, sadness, frustration, and something that looked like fear. "What if you're wrong?" she asked finally. "What if emotions don't make us weak but make us stronger? What if we've been missing something important?" Another advisor stepped forward. "Your Highness observed this human. Look at his crude clothing, his primitive technology, his simple ship. These are the results of a species guided by emotions rather than logic. Do you wish to become like them? Jake felt the sting of the words, but before he could respond, Princess Zara Lynn spoke up. Yes, she said firmly. I do wish to become more like them. This human has shown me joy, wonder, and peace, feelings our advanced civilization has never given me. If that makes me primitive, then perhaps primitive is better than empty. The advisor's skin flashed shocked whites and angry oranges. Princess, surely you don't mean that. I do mean it. Human Jake has taught me that true advancement isn't about having the most complex technology or the greatest wealth. It's about growing in wisdom and compassion. It's about finding meaning and connection. She turned to face the advisors directly. Tell me, when was the last time any of you felt truly content? When did you last experience wonder at something beautiful? When did you last care about another being just because they were alive and deserving of kindness? The advisors remained silent, their skin showing uncomfortable patterns. I thought so, the princess continued. We have built a great empire, but we have forgotten how to live. These humans may have simpler technology, but they remember things we have lost. Things that made life worth living. The lead advisor's voice grew cold. If you continue down this path, princess, the council may need to consider whether you are fit to represent the empire in these negotiations. Princess Zara Lynn's skin showed the deep, steady blues that meant determination. Then let them consider it. I would rather be unfit to represent an empty empire than lose the ability to feel joy. After the advisors left, the princess sat quietly for a long time. Her skin showed sad purples and thoughtful greens. Jake, she said finally, I think I'm beginning to understand something. Your people don't just have emotions. You have the courage to keep them even when others say they make you weak. That takes a different kind of strength than building crystal palaces or conquering worlds. Jake nodded. It's not always easy, but we've learned that the things that make us vulnerable also make us human, and being human is worth protecting. The princess looked out at her crystal city with new eyes. I want to learn that kind of courage. I want to help my people remember what we've forgotten, but I'm afraid of what it might cost. Change is always scary, Jake said, but sometimes it's the only way to grow. Princess Zara Lynn's skin glowed with warm, determined colors. Then we must be brave enough to change. Both our peoples, together. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Emperor Valdris himself, ruler of the Valari Empire, requested a private audience with the human delegation. Jake felt his heart hammering as they were escorted to the throne room he had only heard about in stories. The emperor was taller than his daughter, and his crystal skin held deeper, more complex color patterns. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had ruled worlds for centuries. Humans of Earth, he began. My daughter has told me remarkable things about your species. She claims you possess something our advanced civilization has lost. I find this difficult to believe. Ambassador Clark stepped forward to speak, but Emperor Valdris held up a hand. I wish to hear from the one called Jake Martinez, the one who gave my daughter the simple music device. Jake's mouth went dry. Talking to a princess was one thing, but addressing the ruler of an interstellar empire was terrifying. Still, he stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said, his voice shaking slightly. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I just wanted to share something that meant a lot to me. Show me this device, the Emperor commanded. Jake pulled out his grandmother's music box with trembling hands. He wound it up and set it on the crystal floor before the throne. As the simple melody of Danny Boy filled the vast room, something incredible happened. The Emperor's ancient crystal skin began showing colors that Jake had never seen before. Deep golds mixed with silver, purples so rich they seemed to glow from within, and slowly, like sunrise after a long night, warm colors began to appear, the same greens and yellows and pinks that his daughter had shown. But more than the colors, it was the Emperor's expression that shocked everyone. His face, which had been carved from stone for centuries, softened. His eyes, which had held only cold authority, filled with something that looked like wonder. When the music stopped, Emperor Valdris sat in silence for a long time. Finally he spoke, and his voice was different, younger somehow and full of emotion. I remember, he whispered. For the first time in 300 years, I remember what it felt like to be young. To find joy in simple things, to feel connected to something larger than power and conquest. Princess Zara Lynn approached her father's throne, her own skin glowing with hope. "Father, do you understand now? We lost something important when we decided emotions were primitive." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Yes, my daughter. We traded our souls for crystal palaces. We became masters of technology but forgot how to be alive." He stood from his throne and walked down to where Jake stood. Up close, Jake could see that the Emperor's eyes held tears, not the crystal formations that Valari usually produced, but actual liquid tears like humans cried. "Young human," the Emperor said, "you have given my family something more valuable than all the wealth in our empire. You have reminded us how to feel." Over the following days, word spread throughout the Valari Empire that their emperor had experienced the human emotion phenomenon. Some citizens were curious and wanted to learn more. Others were frightened and angry, believing their leaders had been infected with a primitive weakness. The royal council split into two factions. Progressive Valari, led by Princess Zara Lynn, wanted to study human emotions and perhaps rediscover their own lost feelings. Conservative Valari demanded that all human contact be ended immediately, before their entire civilization was corrupted. "We stand at a crossroads," Emperor Valdris announced to the gathered council. "We can continue as we have been, powerful but empty, or we can try to reclaim what our ancestors once had. But the choice must be made carefully." Jake found himself in the middle of discussions that would shape the future of two civilizations. The princess had asked him to help design a program where young Valari could visit Earth to learn about human emotions, while young humans could come to Crysthera to study advanced technology. "It won't be easy," Jake told her as they worked on the proposal. "Both our peoples will have to change. Humans will need to learn that progress doesn't always mean building bigger and better things. Valari will need to learn that being emotional doesn't make you weak." Princess Zara Lynn's skin showed thoughtful patterns. "Perhaps that's exactly what both our species need. Humans can teach us to feel again. We can teach humans to think beyond their immediate desires. Together, we might become something neither of us could achieve alone." The final negotiations took place in a garden that Princess Zara Lynn had redesigned. Instead of perfect crystal geometries, it now had flowing curves and spaces for random beauty, patches where flowers could grow wild, fountains that made music instead of just looking impressive, and quiet corners where people could sit and think. Emperor Valdris and Ambassador Clark signed the historic agreement while Jake and Princess Zara Lynn watched. But this wasn't just a trade deal anymore. It was something much more important, a cultural exchange that would let both species learn from each other. "The first group of young Valari will travel to Earth in 3 months," the Emperor announced. "They will live with human families and attend human schools. They will learn about emotions, creativity, and finding joy in simple things. And the first group of young humans will come here to study our technology and philosophy," Princess Zara Lynn added. "But more importantly, they will help us remember how to balance advancement with wisdom." Jake watched the ceremony with amazement. A few weeks ago, he had been just a mechanic fixing broken machines. Now he was witnessing the beginning of a new era for two civilizations. After the ceremony, Princess Zara Lynn approached Jake privately. Her skin showed colors he now recognized as affection and gratitude. "I want you to have something," she said, offering him a small crystal device. "It's a music player that contains every song our species has ever created. Thousands of years of music, but none of it ever made me feel what your simple wooden box did." Jake accepted the gift carefully. "Thank you, Your Highness. But you know what? I think the best music is still to come. When your people learn to put emotion into their songs again, and when my people learn to create with your level of skill, I think we'll make something beautiful together." The princess smiled, the first genuine smile Jake had ever seen from a Valari. "Yes, we will make something beautiful together." 6 months later, Jake received a video message from Earth. It showed young Valari children laughing as they played in mud puddles, their crystal skin showing joyful rainbows of color. Human children nearby were showing them how to make mud pies, their faces covered in dirt and enormous grins. Another message showed human students on Crysthera, working alongside Valari scientists to create technology that was both incredibly advanced and somehow beautiful in its simplicity. Machines that hummed with melodies, crystals that grew in patterns inspired by human art, buildings that were both functional and emotionally moving. Jake kept his grandmother's music box on his desk, where he could see it every day. Sometimes he would wind it up and listen to Danny Boy while he worked. The simple melody reminded him that the most powerful gifts were often the smallest ones. The galaxy was changing. Two species were learning from each other, growing together, becoming more than either could be alone. And it had all started with a broken music box, a kind grandmother's memory, and the simple truth that sharing something you love can change the world. Jake smiled as he wound up the music box one more time. His grandmother would have been proud to know that her old yard sale treasure had helped bring peace between the stars. Sometimes the most important things really were the simplest ones,